Let's see. Is he going to go into the twat VC? Oh, he's calling. Oh, he's quick. What do you want?
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like calling my favorite Russian supporter a loner
True. Listen, don't say that too loud where you are, okay?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That will give me a lot of trouble.
Oh, God. Shit. Um, I think I mentioned this to you a bit earlier in the week or last week. I had
hmm
this interesting conversation yesterday with a left-wing ally
Oh
about
yeah.
about right of return, land back, that kind of shit, right?
Mm,
And there's basically this kind of idea that like settler colonialism has happened all over the world, and really the question of getting land back comes down to what's possible, right?
yeah,
So you talk
I
about
agree with
like
that.
Israel pulling out of Gaza. Yeah, it probably made sense to take all the fucking settlers with them. If they do the same in the West Bank, it's going to be a bit harder because there's like over 500,000 people there now that would have to leave, but should probably still be the right thing to do.
hmm
It made me wonder about like Ukraine is still taking territory back, like Kharkiv and such.
hmm
But when I hear people talking about like peace negotiations and shit like that, um, even though things like Crimea only happened like 8 years ago, does that still
hmm
not feel sometimes like enough time has passed that like if peace was offered in exchange for like Crimea and whatever else, like that would be like that would be better to accept that than to just to keep going and fighting until Ukraine has all of it back? Or what's the kind of like what are the thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm me. I don't speak
Mm.
on behalf of any Ukrainian that when I say this, and
Yeah.
every Ukrainian that I know want to give zero land compromises.
Yeah.
Um, But I understand the urge there when it comes to the idea of giving up Crimea in order to secure peace. But I think that you would have to look at the full peace deal, like what it says when it comes to NATO, what it says
Mm.
when it comes to the language laws, what it says when it comes to demilitarization, because a lot of these things are just completely non-acceptable.
Yeah.
Like demilitarization, for example, all that does is kick the can down the road. My stance is that the Ukrainians are in I would say, generally good position right now militarily. They have mobilized over 700,000 people. Soon they will have mobilized over 1 million people.
Whoa.
They won the Battle of Kiev. They won the Battle of Cherniv. They won the battle for Sumy. They've basically won the battle for Kharkiv. They stopped the advance to Mykolaiv, so they won the battle for Mykolaiv.
Mm.
And the Donbass offensive does not look like it's going to capture all of the Donbass anytime soon. And the Ukrainians are not going to run out of manpower. The Russians seem to be spiraling out of manpower quite quickly. And so my position is that I believe that the Ukrainians should hold out until it gets a favorable peace deal
Mm.
towards its interests. I don't think any peace deal the Ukrainians would sign would include giving away the Crimean Peninsula, personally. But I don't think any peace deal they would sign would get it back to them. I think it might be one of those things that live in limbo. I honestly don't have a solution for that. That's probably the hardest question of the war. But personally, I could understand a somebody saying, you know what, we might have to give up Crimea in order to secure peace, since it's very difficult to advance on militarily. Even if the Ukrainians, I think, they have the more long-term advantageous military position. I would understand it, right? But
Mm.
it's a very, very difficult ask, because then you're in a way almost rewarding Russian behavior.
Yeah.
You're rewarding Russian aggression, and you're rubber stamping officially their illegal annexation, and you're kind of closing the book on it.
Yeah. Because I imagine even if there is like a peace offer and they give it up, it's probably not gonna come with any recognition, right? Like they're just gonna kind of not fight for it, but also like not recognize
Yeah,
it,
it would
keep sanctions up.
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it would probably be a situation where the Russians withdraw from all of the territory post February 24th.
Mm.
Maybe they go back to the pre-February 24th Donbass lines. Maybe they leave the Donbass. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe that would be the compromise. But I think right now it's kind of hard to say this far out. But my goal is for Ukraine to be in the most advantageous negotiating position as physically possible, which could possibly include getting Crimea back. But the problem is that Russia believes that Crimea is its sovereign territory.
Yeah.
And the difference between that and the rest of it, that if it came out and said, well, this is our territory too, is that it's of extreme strategic significance due to the port there and its access to the Black Sea. And so I don't think it would be something that would be as easily given up. And so that's why I can't think of a scenario in my hand where we kind of wrestle it back outside of a scenario where the Russian government is in complete turmoil, and they just are unable to accept any peace agreement, and so the fighting goes on to a point where the Russians literally can't muster a force to really push back the Ukrainians at all.
Yeah.
So my main problem is I want to find a way to get Crimea back to Ukraine, or find some like sharing agreement, kind of like, I don't know, like Northern Ireland or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's very difficult for me to imagine a scenario where the Ukrainians can actually take it back militarily, because it's of such strategic significance that I doubt the Russians would be able to budge off of it, and they would probably throw away as many lives as possible as needed to preserve it.
Well, because they conscripted pretty hard in Crimea after 2014, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they conscripted pretty hard. I want to figure out a way to get it back, but I just don't know how.
And then, not to mention, in the same way, there are a lot of refugees from Crimea now as well, right? Like tens of thousands of them who fled after 2014, and
Yeah.
then replaced by Russian settlers. Well, I guess we'll call them settlers, yeah, but like Russians who moved in afterwards. I feel like
No, we can call them
100,000.
settlers.
Yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. And then it's like actioning that kind of return as well. It just
Yeah,
made
it's
me
just
wonder, yeah, because like just because of that discussion I had yesterday about Israel Palestine,
how
it's like,
actionable is getting that land back, basically.
yeah,
It doesn't seem actionable from this point. But I would also say that, I mean, Ukraine performing as well as it didn't
hmm
seem actionable. The idea of Ukraine standing up on its two legs and actually fighting back the Russian army didn't seem actionable. And depending on how the Russian military performs going forward, just how catastrophically it performs, if the Ukrainians could remove negotiations off of the table. I guess for me, this is the thing. I don't think the Russians are going to negotiate Crimea away outside of some very milquetoast compromise where it's like, well, maybe they could have dual citizenship or something like that, right? So the only way I think the Ukrainians could get Crimea back is if they take it by force. And so that would be a question for military generals. That wouldn't
hmm
really be a question for me, because I don't know how exactly Ukraine would go about taking Crimea back. Taking the Donbass back, I think, is much more feasible.
yeah, because wasn't Crimea like one of the most militarized parts of before the invasion as well? Because I guess it's like, I don't know. There's something about the geography of Crimea that makes it quite hard to go into, right? From Ukraine. I don't know.
There's like a few bridges connecting it, and
Yeah,
once those bridges are shot,
yeah,
then you've got to figure out crossings and like naval landings and a lot.
pontooning.
That makes it, yeah, pontooning. You got a pontoon. You make it 10 times harder.
Isn't it like great that like pontooning has become like a key strategy in this war? I don't know. I just
It
can't.
it's so important.
It's a
It's
silver
important to do all
lining,
these
you
river
know?
crossings. All
Oh
these
god.
rivers really have come in handy for the Ukrainians. They've really thrown away a lot of
hmm
Russian lives with these rivers.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing how like you can like build a bridge and just forget about the abundance of anti-bridge technology on the other side.
The abundance of anti-bridge
We forgot
technology.
about anti-bridge technology.
We forgot about bomb. We forgot
Yeah.
about bullet. We forgot about drone, plane, helicopter, missile, artillery, planes. We forgot about every single type of munition. It's really not that hard to blow up a bridge.
Yeah. Is denazification still on Putin's list of demands?
No, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck. It was always like a false narrative, right?
Yeah.
This war has basically nothing whatsoever to do with Nazism. And anybody trying to tie this war to Nazism, I think, is just like trying to virtue signal, or just doesn't understand the history.
Yeah, I
right?
get that, but is it actually off the list of demands now? because it
I
was
don't
on there
think it
before,
like
wasn't it?
officially like we
Oh,
will no
okay.
longer care about it, but I think they've never brought it up since then. Really,
Yeah.
I
Do you know
think
what I
like
think?
what they would basically say is, hey, we took Mariupol, which was the base for Azov, therefore we did it. Like, and I don't care if they can turn to their population and say that.
I think it's kind of
But
like when he says
mhm,
that. I think it's kind of like a symbolic thing for the because you know like Soviet nostalgia is kind of big in Russia.
mhm.
Um, I didn't even know this, but didn't they do like a denazification project in Finland after pushing back against Operation Barbarossa?
I have zero clue if that's the
Yeah,
case. I
that yeah. That was like so the peace deal between Russia and Finland was an exchange partially for denazification because Finland was like allied with the Nazis, right? And I
mhm.
wonder, it's like but after watching Dugin talk, the way that how he insists on this like very postmodern view of truth, and it's all just like very symbolic and very much like it's our story versus yours kind of thing. It reminded me of the way that like white nationalists will always like have these kind of like pastiche views of history, you know, like a Roman in a 1950s nuclear family on a fucking like European farm or whatever, like that kind of thing. As the same way that like just saying, well, denazification is kind of celebrated in Russia when it comes to Finland, so we'll just like pretend to do the
I think
same thing in Finland, right?
it's the Soviet history, that Soviet military glory history, and it's also the fact that like Slavs don't like Nazis because Nazis killed
Yeah,
Slavs,
yeah.
right? It's not that complicated. So if you can paint the enemy as Nazis, it's very easy to demonize them and very easy to do whatever is necessary to defeat them, right?
Mhm.
It's like I don't know. It'd be like how we dehumanized communism and communists during the Vietnam War, or and
Mhm.
then therefore like whatever was needed was ever was needed, you know?
True. Yeah. So what do you think what seems to be happening like now or next? Is it still just
Next.
Ukraine pushing east?
Right now it's basically stalemated everywhere. The only place that hasn't stalemated, is in Kharkiv. Um,
Yeah.
but that seems to be slowing down a little bit. We're gonna have to wait a little bit longer on that. And the Donbass is where basically all the action is happening. Lysychansk and Severodonetsk are at risk of encirclement. I really hope they don't get encircled.
Yeah, I saw
Uh,
that.
th- the Russians still have to capture Lyman. They still have to cross the river that's behind Lyman, and they still need to launch an encirclement action from Popnitsa. So it's still not certain. And I know people in the area who are telling me like I do not think that they're going to encircle it. I'm sure they're not going to encircle it, but like I don't know if that's just hopium on like the
Mm.
absolute like top 10 levels, which is kind of what I'm starting to lean towards. But this original goal that the Russians had was to like overthrow the Ukrainian government, and then that failed. And then it was like, okay, well then we'll siege all the major cities, and eventually, okay, well then that failed. And then it's like, okay, well then we're gonna, we're gonna like, okay, take the Donbass, and then that failed. And so now they're like, okay, we're gonna do the smallest encirclement possible and see if that works. This is literally the
Yeah.
backup to the backup to the backup to the backup plan.
Yeah, it was so it's Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, that's how you pronounce those names, right?
Yes, that's how
Yeah.
I pronounce them.
Okay, I'm going for that, yeah. Yeah, every time I've been reading about those on stream, I'm just like, how the fuck? Okay. Yeah.
I can send you a decent like map person that I look up. You can always look at the best is the Institute for the Study of War, but
Yeah.
somebody that I've been looking at a lot is somebody called by the name of Nathan Rooser, which I
Nathan
can send
Ruser.
you. Yeah, he's on Twitter. He gives daily
Oh,
updates.
I think I've seen that's like the really long threads, is it?
Yeah, he does pretty long threads, but he
Yeah.
also makes maps to kind of update people about the conflict and what's going on. And his maps are really, really good. I can send you the map he released for yesterday quickly. Let me send you this. Oh, bam.
Bam.
Good stuff. It's good stuff.
Someone in chat's just called you an amoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man. So you're amoral,
True.
morally corrupt, and morally bankrupt. That's
On all
like
levels.
3 layers of amoral.
Exactly.
Why is their name
There is zero
Sylvia Plath's
morals.
oven? Holy shit. Why?
They're one of my they're one of my subscribers.
All right, okay. Okay.
It's no, don't delete that.
No,
No,
wait,
what?
they got banned.
Did they get
Oh,
banned?
I think my chat's in threat mode because of yesterday, my mods.
He's one of my. That's my sub notification. Is Big Papa Fascist calling me an amoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man?
Yeah, that's brilliant. You're like it's like stupid idiot, you know, like in school.
Exactly.
Do you want me to show you a good thumbnail?
Yeah, show me a good thumbnail.
Show you a really good thumbnail.
Do you want to see one of my good thumbnails?
Sure.
Okay, let me send you one of my best videos. My best video I've ever produced.
Oh no, wait, that thumbnail's wrong. You have to click on the link. Anyway.
There's no more room for the Palestinians. It's all Israelis now. Jesus
It's these in
Christ.
quotation marks.
These are quotation marks, yeah. Oh my
It's that
goodness.
Israeli flag with the turd on it as well that the kid's pissing on. That's kind of
I don't even see it. Where is it?
that's in the Discord. Actually, it's the one that yeah.
This is
Oh
my
wait.
favorite. This is my favorite thumbnail. You like that?
Holy shit! What's the connection to furries and the buffalo shooting? What?
The Buffalo shooter looked at furry porn before he did the shooting.
Oh, he looked at furry porn before doing the shooting.
Yes.
Oh,
Of a dog.
that's not surprising, is it? I don't know. 4chan. I heard this really.
Martha was an average dog.
Yeah, because you know how people keep saying like there's yet to be like an America First shooter, right? It's like all these. There's still people who basically come from 4chan and 8chan. I think that makes sense because if you're like a Fuentes fan, you might have hope, you know, like for all the conferences and shit, like compared to like 4chan,
Would
which
you
is
have
just
that?
like full on doomer, you know?
Full on doomer, great replacement, neo-Nazi shit. Like at that point, you've already kind of, if you've associated yourself with that, then you're already kind of ruined your life.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that like. So I knew Tucker spoke about great replacement a lot, but I didn't realize it was as fucking hard as it was. Crowder's doing it as well now.
Um, who's doing what now?
Crowder's doing great replacement theory is neither great nor theory.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I actually reacted to that on stream. It's really bad. And the thing is, not only did you know the data he used to talk about like how immigrants take more from welfare was from an organization founded by a eugenicist and white nationalist.
Oh,
It is a center specifically designed to advocate against immigration.
Yeah, because wait, like, aren't there still? I've also noticed this as well that there are actual like proper departments of studies that are like for neo Nazis to publish studies about about intelligence differences between races and shit.
It is so
Yeah.
unbelievably easy for you to grab like some organizational professional sounding name, name it an organization, and boom, you got an org. It's a professional org.
Yeah, like full fucking like non-profit like think tanks and shit. Yeah.
It's not that difficult whatsoever. And then what was it later he did? It was that, and then he started to talk about one of the most important civil rights bill in American history, which made our immigration system not just say the whites are the best, and it said now we can immigrate everyone else. And then he was like, this was the disadvantaged white people. It was very strange.
God. Isn't it interesting that people keep saying this shooter was just mentally ill and all that? But it's actually
I do believe he was mentally ill, but it's probably not just that. I
well,
think anybody who does something like
when
this
you
has to have some level of mental illness.
when you think about it, it's like it's actually from their perspective, it's quite rational, right? Because they've actually got like Steven Crowder wouldn't have done that video if it wasn't for the shooting, right? If it wasn't for great replacement being pushed into the discourse.
I mean, now people are paying attention to Great Replacement,
Yeah,
but then
and
it
now people are
also makes
defending
Great
it.
Replacement. Well, defending it, true, but then it's also getting a lot more attacks than defense, I would say. And it also makes it look worse because people are going to be like, "You believe in what? Isn't that what that shooter did?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
It's like I think
yeah.
more people heard about Al Qaeda after 9/11, but more people hated Al Qaeda after 9/11. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, but I guess it.
Look at that. Look at your mod in chat. Brown equals terrorist. That's very offensive. Why would you mod that person? Honor.
Well, listen, we're a broad church.
You're a broad coalition,
including the moderation, and apparently, yeah, yeah. I just thought like if I'm gonna be a Zionist, I might as well go all the way, right?
You're gonna be a Zionist.
Yeah,
you know, you're
not?
gonna join the coalition. You're gonna join the Blue and White Party, or what's the goal? What Israeli party would you join?
Well, what's interesting to me is that like because their perspective was that like because you know how Zionism obviously changed a lot before, like from 1940, like from the 1800s until now, right? It used to be the
Yeah, of
idea of
course.
just like, what was it? Not so much a Jewish state, but a state with Jews, right? Like that kind of thing. Um, which makes me wonder, like the people who get accused of being like Zionists because they might want like a two-state solution short term and all that kind of shit. Then it makes me wonder why those people wouldn't call like Arafat a Zionist, right? Because he believed in recognizing a second state as well, or like
Um, I
the
think maybe a
PA,
lot
right?
of them would say this is just like compromise with reality. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Some people, I guess that would be the response that, well, it's like it's impossible to get rid of Israel now. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, do you have much thoughts on like what's been? Because I think the perspective on two-state and one-state solution has changed like pretty rapidly in the last 2 years, right? At least in Palestine.
It feels like everybody has. I don't know. It feels like everybody that I know says like two states impossible, right?
Yeah, like mostly because of like Israel expanding the settlements like so hard that yeah, because they would now have to pull like 600,000 people out of the West Bank if they stop the occupation, right? Yeah, which they're never going to do.
Yeah, the odds of that happening are like 0 to 0. I mean, there's like dual citizenship things you could do, or like all this other stuff, but the odds of that happening are basically zilch. And so, like, the idea is now that I'm hearing from someone is okay. Well, what about one state where everyone's equal?
Mm.
Yeah,
But
and
that's also like
I just don't know how much I trust the Israeli state to do that.
yeah, like I think I mean I would have got this out yesterday if like there wasn't someone screaming in my ear, but like I kind of think like from what I understand, it seems like the most likely scenario, which is really bad, is like there will be like a one state solution, but it's going to be like one Israel. Like they're just going to keep going until there's like no more Palestine, and then it does just become like a de facto one apartheid state of Israel, and they won't want to give equal rights to the Palestinians because then they're afraid that those equal rights will lead to them getting like right of return and shit like that. So and then it's going to have to be a case where you just have to use international pressure to try and force them to give equal rights, like basically for another few decades, like apartheid style. And
Dude,
what the state
all
of Israel
the
does to try and combat that is going to be quite scary.
studying like marriage laws and stuff like that in Israel is so crazy. It's crazy how religion has crept its way into every aspect of the nation's life. And I don't
Mm,
know, it's just so wild to me that like the idea of not like for example, like the idea that you can't marry somebody of the outside your faith
hmm.
inside Israel. That's just a wild that's just de facto segregation, yeah?
Yeah,
That's religious segregation. I don't know like what other thing can you call that?
yeah. Even from a supposedly secular state, right? Yeah, yeah.
I, man, it's I don't speak about Israel and Palestine very often because I don't feel educated enough to speak about it. I tried to study it in college, but then I kind of walked away with more questions than answers. And most of my questions are just like the thing is, if it's a hard, there feels like there's no good answer, and this is true with most foreign policy.
Mm.
There's no good actionable answer. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, although I think the reason, like, because I've read a lot about it in the last couple of weeks, but I think the thing is for people like us is that like if you're in the West, like in Europe or America, whether you want like a one state or a two state or whatever, the thing you have to do to achieve that is kind of still the same, right? Like all you can really do is like BDS, protest, vote, right?
Pressure the Israeli state. I mean, that
Yeah.
would be my position, is that the United States should pressure the Israeli state or make aid contingent upon concessions, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But of
Because
course, when you start saying that, it's not something that's received very well.
yeah, I actually thought about this because like I think one of the best bits of advice I was able to give on BDS from like what I learned in uni was that um, BDS campaigns often really play the press really badly because they'll just say boycott Israel. So like if you're a university and you're tied to universities in Israel, you can say divest from this university, but the problem with that is or you say divest from Israel, but the problem with that is like there are some universities in Israel, like Haifa University, where a lot of the students are Palestinians, and it's like why would you fuck them over, you know? And then that's why like it makes more sense to be a lot more focused. So like find universities in Israel that are specifically connected to the IDF or are doing research to build weapons and shit like that, you know? And I feel like that's a lot easier to defend. So rather than like boycott Israel for us, it was like boycott Bar Ilan or the Hebrew University, you know?
I forget what these sanctions are called, but there's a specific type of sanction that's supposed to be more specific about targeting people who are directly involved in war crimes or crimes against humanity, and instead of like sanctioning the whole country as a whole. I've always been a big supporter of that. I've also like usually been a big supporter of placing like certain types of sanctions on militaries that like commit war crimes or commit crimes against humanity. The difficult, I guess, like for example, I think in Myanmar, the American sanction policy in Myanmar was pretty smart, specifically targeting those involved in the coup, specifically those involved in genocide against the Rohingya, and specifically sanctioning military companies. I think that like left a lot of the economy, which was necessary for the civilian population to thrive and survive, continuing to function, while specifically targeting the institutions that continue the worst parts of that society. But the problem is if something's baked into your society so totally, so completely, like Zion, like certain aspects of Zionism or certain types of Zionism, because there's many different types of Zionism. Um, it's kind of hard to take like this little pen and be like, okay, we're gonna touch this, we're gonna touch that, we're gonna touch this, because there's so many aspects of society that is propping up the expansion of settlements. There's so many aspects of society that want to continue the religious segregation. There's so many different aspects of the society that have the bigoted views that they have of Palestinian Muslims. So it's kind of hard for me to say, well, okay, let's boycott this one university. It's like none of this on an individual level I feel like is going to do anything. It has to be from a governmental level. It has to be from a national level.
Yeah, I mean, if you're but if you're a student, right, then you can't. There's no election for 2 years. It's like you have to. But is that necessarily true? Because I'm pretty sure, like the boycotts of the Jordan Valley that happened like 2014 kind of time, didn't they actually like do quite a lot to limit the extent to which the settlements could continue? Like they couldn't go as far as they wanted to because of boycotts.
I wouldn't know.
Okay, but yeah, I agree. Obviously, like I think when it comes to government, like you can't really sanction as a government without hurting civilians, right? Like there's especially when it's just
impossible,
the state
and
is
that's
that
why I think like
entrenched.
when you have like government, like when you have sanctions on such a total level, it's usually I think should be reserved for when one country invades another country, which is also something that like kind of like tramples on my idea of like the idea of sanctioning Israel for me, because I want sanctions like that only reserved for nations that invade other nations. Now, you could make the argument that Israel is in a perpetual state of invasion or occupation of Palestine.
Yeah.
Therefore, it could still fall under this umbrella. But then you could also say that about, I think, a lot of countries around the world. Morocco would be another nation that you could bring this up to.
Because of Western Sahara.
Because of Western Sahara, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the problem, is that people, what do you call it? People will pick and choose, right? I've
Yeah, of
noticed
course.
that the people who make the arguments about Israel just like are very often okay with what happened in Crimea, even though it's like a lot more recent.
Yeah, I think my position on Israel, I don't feel smart. I don't talk about it because I don't feel educated enough to talk about it, and I'd rather not be an uneducated voice talking about it. But my position is very simple. Stop settlement expansion. Before anything else happens, you need to stop settlement expansion and either start rolling back settlements or figure out the status of settlements, because you can't even begin to negotiate as the person you're negotiating with continues to expand into your land, right? It's like if the Russian army is marching towards Kiev and they're like, so, you want to accept our proposal? You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And so before anything else happens, the expansion of settlements need to stop and possibly be rolled back.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, just you get these very kind of like incremental moves. I wonder, do you think that's going to be, because there are some
Left Hand
people
Stew just
like,
said something in chat, but also Israel is invading and occupying Palestine, so they met your threshold. Yeah, I've already said that.
yeah, I think it's like, is it because there are some, I think, people who have an accelerationist line, which is just wait out Israel's like expansion to the point that it does just become a single apartheid state, and then Israel becomes like an international pariah, and that no one can defend, like South Africa style, you know, and then like even Congress would have to like sanction eventually, or yeah.
You know, the thing that gets me about Israel is I feel like everybody always talks about like the democracy of the Middle East, right?
Mm,
You know, they want only democracy because Tunisia doesn't exist. But
yeah.
um the thing that gets me about that is that it doesn't seem like a country that devoted to the idea of self-governance because of it being denied to the occupied Palestine. But of course, I'm also surprised that it's complete and utter. This isn't something that's really surprising me, if I'm going to be completely honest. I understand why it's doing it strategically. Complete and utter indifference to Ukraine almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got like Lavrov coming out saying Hitler was a Jew. Just like the most like ridiculous bullshit in the world
Yeah.
that pisses them off, but they just stand there. And the reason why is they want to be able to continue to strike Iranian proxies in Syria, and that's more important to them than a principled stand for democracy in Ukraine. And so I'm really failing to figure out exactly like where's this principled stand for democracy as to why I should support Israel over like Palestinian liberation. Where is this principled humanitarian position or this freedom of the press position as the IDF fucking um, snipes journalists? CNN just came out with another report on it, and Bellingcat came out with a
Yeah.
report on it like 2 weeks before. It really is. It's really difficult for me to like look at the state of affairs and find a justification for me not for like us to continue to dump money into Israel when we have a separate power, Ukraine, fighting for its actual right for self-determination, that we could be diverting those funds to instead of the country that is stomping out another people's right for self-determination. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, like, I don't know, I wonder if that exposes the US, or just like people are so focused on Ukraine that it just lets them kind of like get away with it, or
I
um,
think a lot of it is the international community is pretty focused on Ukraine. I think that's starting to fade away, and I hope it doesn't. But I think it also it's just been like a constant state of affairs in Israel. Something that always happens when there's like an invasion or a new invasion, new war, is everybody starts paying attention to that, and then there's a lot of activists who have been like doing active advocacy on wars that have been going on for like 7 or 8 years. And I think that it's just like, you know, year 7 and 8 for a lot of people. There's like and this is not nice, but this is true from a viewer's perspective. It's kind of like, oh, that's the same old, same old. Syria's always kind of like been fighting, right? You know,
mhm.
I grew up with the Syrian civil war. I grew up with the war in Yemen, right? And then the new big hot invasion comes on the block, you know, with high heels and long legs, and everybody turns over to that like, new invasion, huh? And so ultimately, what I'm scared of is people forgetting very quickly about Ukraine. That's what I'm very scared of. I can even see how the news coverage is slowly shifting away. I'm very scared of that.
Someone in my chat is saying that they're worried that Zelensky was worried about Ukraine becoming a big Israel.
That
I mean,
Ukraine was worried about becoming a big Israel. What do you mean?
um, I don't know, what the fact that there's going to be like some occupied territories that'll probably stay that way for a very long time, and I don't know. There is Russia going
Oh,
to like, start expanding and building? I don't think that's really comparable. No.
I think the closest would be the history of Crimea.
Yeah,
I think that would be the closest.
yeah.
Afghanistan is a great example of this. Like everybody talked about Afghanistan for like a month, and
Oh
then nobody
God.
cared anymore.
Well, now because it's just the norm, isn't it? Like the Taliban.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
almost like, and I almost like feel personally like I don't cover Afghanistan as much as I should. But it's also like I don't get reminded of Afghanistan's existence that often by the media that I consume.
Well,
So it's like fuck.
it's also because like people on Twitter will say that you're racist for caring about Ukraine but not talking about Yemen and Palestine. But then it's like, oh well, why are you not talking about the Rohingyas? Yeah. And then you find out that they're
Yeah,
like, you know, CCP and shit. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think Myanmar is something that I'm actually fuck. I've talked to a few people about the idea of going to Myanmar, and I've found out that
Whoa.
that's basically impossible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, once it was done here, I wanted to see if maybe because I feel very fulfilled just doing the work I'm doing right now, and I wanted to go to Myanmar, but that's not possible. And the same thing is for Yemen. And so it feels like all the other conflicts I want to go do something like this with, Ukraine was the most accessible. And it's also like it's hard to explain, but it's very difficult to explain why one conflict grabs your heart or grabs your attention instead of another conflict. Um, because there's a million conflicts, a million injustices going on at the same time. I guess for me, I'm never going to put anyone down for fighting against injustice or covering injustice or anywhere in the world, no matter,
Yeah.
not even if it's very, very, very insignificant. Because I'd rather them be doing that than them doing nothing at all, which is what the majority of people do. So I'm never going to put down anybody for doing that, even if I think that injustice is less important than injustice somewhere else.
I think that's probably the best attitude, right? Because otherwise, yeah, you are just like purity testing. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can make this like a never ending, like, oh, well, why are you in Ukraine when you could be in, I don't know, Afghanistan? And then somebody say, oh, Afghanistan? Oh, why not Yemen? Oh, Yemen, huh?
What
What
about
about
Myanmar?
Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about fucking Ethiopia. And then it gets it's a never ending spiral.
Mauritania, where there's like what 20% of the population are basically in
Hey, what
slavery.
about the
Yeah.
Central African Republic, huh?
Central
That's been
African
going on
Republic.
forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congo. Well, I don't even know what's happened to Congo now. But I know a few years ago it was fucking like the worst place to be.
Yeah. And I mean, and I have very strong ideological ties to this fight, I would say too. For example, in Yemen, there's not really like an ideological side I would point to and say, I kind of more align with that. Because even though I want Saudi Arabia to come to the peace table and agreed on either partition or some fucking whatever it would be necessary to end the conflict, at this point, I've just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But I think partition is really probably the only option at this point. I don't see either side coming to terms with anything else, like a
Partition
negotiated
where?
government. Like just like it wouldn't be the first time Yemen was split in fucking two.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
honestly don't. I can't think of any other solution to that. But I'm not like, even though I'm against Saudi Arabia's brutal fucking butchering of the country, the Houthi rebels are fucking, oh my god, holy
Mm-hmm.
shit, like holy fuck. um at the end of the day, right, I understand the geopolitical forces, but holy mother of Jesus Christ. And so I don't have any like ideological ties to it, where I feel much more ideologically tied to this conflict, because I feel like the system of governance is more worth defending on top of this idea of self-governance.
That is,
Not to mention, there's also messier because there's a lot of people who don't align with the Houthi rebels, and it's
yeah.
fuck. Where this is, I feel like one of the most clear cut geopolitical issues. That's why I feel like a lot of people dunk on the Ukraine flags, because it's so clear cut. So everybody's on this side, and that means since everybody's on this side, that you have a lot of fucking morons on the side who say a lot of dumb shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, even though not that many people talk about Palestine or Yemen or the people who like take that kind of focus are pretty insane as well.
I mean, I feel like most fucking foreign policy nerds have some fucking crazy ass skeletons in their closet. But I mean, I think some of the nicest people that I ever met were the people from who were involved in the Sudanese revolution. Those are probably some of the nicest, most normal people I've ever met.
Who?
The Sudanese revolution,
Oh yeah,
you know,
okay,
when
cool.
everybody had like blue for Sudan and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I interviewed them when I was working with the Gravel campaign.
Ah, you're with the Gravel campaign.
Yep, I was. You didn't know that?
The Gravel, what? The Gravel Institute? You mean like them or different people?
No, no,
Okay.
no, 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 not the institute. No, the
Okay.
Gravel, as in when Mr. Gravel himself was running for president.
Ah,
I have nothing to do with the institute
you
at
disavow.
whatsoever. I don't disavow. They follow me on Twitter, and I appreciate the follow.
Okay.
I've burned enough bridges.
Yeah. Burned enough
Yeah.
pontoons that I tried to build.
Burn enough pontoons.
What?
Yep, exactly.
What happened there after my? I mean, do you have? You don't have to tell me. But what happened there after my phone call with Gaffles? Because I don't know what happened in between that and the YouTube videos.
Well, I gave it a week for Keffels to respond. Like either by DMing me and getting back to me or something. It never happened, so I released a video about it, and she responded to the video without watching the video, and she said she hadn't watched it, but then she responded to it because she had somebody else watch it and then give her notes on it instead, which then meant there were errors in the notes, and there were things that the person wrote that I didn't say, and then a lot of it she just didn't respond to. Like, she would just read out my position and then move on to the next one and then just keep reading, and then she just like insulted me a lot because she knew that in it I called her delusional, and at one point, and she thought like, oh, Dylan's just fucking tearing into me, when I was just like, this is delusional, right? Because of her position that I set up like an ambush of her, and then she really dug in and started throwing a hammer fist, so to speak, of Dylan's a fucking war tourist motherfucker. You think the Ukrainians want him there?
Oh,
Dylan's transphobic. Oh, my friends and I know he's transphobic. I got like really in the fucking gutter, and I was like, okay, ooh. Then I of course reacted to it, and was like, damn, that's a lot.
well, did Zelensky ask you to go there?
I do no. The Ministry of Defense did.
No, wait, what?
The ministry. I have a press card from the Ministry of Defense.
They asked you to go. Wait, tell me from the beginning of that.
They approved it. They were like, they looked
right.
at the. I put in the paperwork. They looked at it, said, okay,
Oh,
you're press, and they stamped it, and yeah.
so you have been. So you were
He said I didn't have any
invited to go.
credentials. Yeah.
Wow.
She said I'm not a real journalist because I don't have credentials.
Did the Kharkiv Kid Finder invite you? What do they feel about
Yeah,
your presence there?
yeah. The Kharkiv Kid Finder did all the paperwork for me.
No, the town's not big enough for 2 kid finders, eh?
True, it's not. I'm the Lviv. Nah, never. I should not make these jokes. I should pass.
Okay.
Somebody said the Maryland Minor Finder. Somebody said that.
Well, that fits. What do you think about the implications that Johnny Depp's lawyer has connections to Sergei Lavrov?
That would be fucking awesome. That would be hilarious.
And
I
a
would
few
love
other
that.
oligarchs as well. It's here, and did you know about that?
Sergei Lavrov having ties to Johnny Depp's lawyer? No, I don't. But
Yeah.
that sounds hilarious.
In October 2010, Waldman then indicated in another filing that he would be working with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, gathering information and providing advice and analysis as it relates to the US policy towards the visa status of Oleg Deripaska, who's an oligarch. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I want Sergei Lavrov to be called to a witness's stand.
Oh, God. Like, he would just make shit up, wouldn't he?
He would just be up there like, this
He would
is
just
another
ad-lib.
example of the degeneracy of Western women. It'd be great.
That would be
love it.
amazing. He would just freestyle like a short story.
It'd be fantastic.
Brilliant.
The Ukraine is
someone in that
officially
trial-
annexing Amber Heard's home.
Someone in that trial is going to have like blood relation to Hitler, right?
Oh my god. Oh no, he should say that that Amber Heard is related to Hitler. He should go on the stand and say that. I think it would really help.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, a left-hand Stu just said, as actually credentialed member of the paramilitary press corps in Canada, I give Dylan Burns my blessing. He is doing journalism in Poland and Ukraine. Wow. Thank you, left-hand Stu. Now I will be sure to tell everybody in the UPA here, everybody flying their red and black flags, that you support them. I will give a personal letter from left-hand Stu to the Azov Battalion saying that left-hand Stu supports their efforts. Slava Ukraini. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Jesus.
Thank you so much.
God damn it. Disavow.
Disavow. You want to know what I found out about this like red and black flag shit in Ukraine?
It
The
looks
thing
like the
is,
Ancon flag, but
I
yeah, go on.
found a card game that is UPA fighting Nazis, and it's a card game of Ukrainian nationalists fighting the Nazis. And what I figured out from this is that I think the Ukrainian population, and Lviv is the center for UPA shit. It's like of the whole country, so I'm seeing the
Okay.
most of it here. Is that I think that they've just rewritten the history to, oh, the UPA fought the Soviets and the Nazis. They just loved Ukraine, which is technically true, but then they forget the part where the UPA also collaborated with the Nazis. And they also did a lot of killings. So then I'm feeling like it feels like kind of one of those, like, you know, it's state rights. You know, it feels kind of like how I feel people talk about the Confederate flag. Except the Confederates also never shot at the Nazis too, so maybe a little bit more redeemable. It's very slightly.
Yeah, but that's the problem, isn't it? Because people, like even people in the UK who like stand Churchill, most of them don't know about the Bengal famine, right? They don't like him for that. You know, they like the
it seems that
fucking
it's all.
whitewashed
It
version,
feels like
right?
it's all ignorance. It's not like these people are like, I love Hitler. Hitler is cool. It's like I like Ukraine, and this guy fought for Ukraine, right? It's like it's a very like surface level kind of revisionist understanding of the history. And I'm not trying to call Ukrainians ignorant. It's
Yeah.
just I think the average citizen anywhere doesn't have that depth of an understanding. And he's an extremely controversial figure.
Yeah. Well, that's
But
the thing.
I
Like because everyone has like whitewashed historical heroes, right? Like we still have statues of fucking Edward VIII in the UK, and he was a Nazi. He was a full-on Nazi king, right? Yeah.
dude, I saw these socks that said Daddy Bandera on them, man.
Oh no, that's
I
maybe a
almost bought them just to have them, but I ended up not because
Jesus.
I feel like me having them would almost be an endorsement. It was simping, like sexually simping for Bandera.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That would be excellent Russian propaganda if you
If I had
found
those
that.
socks,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you found them, yeah, just like because that's what
Dude,
they'll use as evidence,
I
right?
went to this restaurant. I was just too curious. There's this restaurant that is where if you knock on the door, you have to say a code word, which I won't tell you because I'm the secret agent, okay?
Nice.
And then they'll point a gun at you when they open the door and they'll ask you for the code. And then you give them the code and then they bring you into the restaurant. And then it's a UPA bunker that is a restaurant with
Okay.
guns everywhere and fucking just like UPA posters and like the cups are all metal and they forgot these fucking anti-Hitler and anti-Stalin fucking art everywhere. And it's fucking crazy. But the
Whoa.
gift store, holy shit, I've never seen more red and black in my life.
Oh, isn't there a thing in Eastern Europe that is the Stalin candles? Have you seen those?
The Stalin candle? I've not seen Stalin candles,
It's just
no.
like you light the candle and Stalin melts. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody says, then you just have dinner? Yes, and I have to say, it is some of the best dinner in the world. Can I say something? And I don't know if
Mm.
this is a controversial position. I know that there's like this like joke about like, white people and their unseasoned chicken.
Hmm.
Racists cook some of the best food, and I hate it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they've taken all of their hatred in their heart and they've just put it into seasoning. But all the fucking like backwoods, not all backwoods people, but when I meet, if I know somebody, my family member, like a family member that's racist, or I know somebody's racist, and they fucking know anything about cooking, it's always fucking great. And I have I have no reason to know why. And I want it to be bad, but it's good. And so my dedication against racism is me not going and eating at their dinners and eating at their cookouts. And that's my pledge against racism is I will not go to the racist cookouts no matter how good the ribs are.
Bro, it's just Europeans though, right? Like you're just an American in Europe and the food like tastes of
No, no,
something
no.
and
I'm
you're
talking about
surprised.
generally. This is across all
Okay,
cultures.
okay. Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
That's not the case
I'm
in the
confused.
UK. Racists in the UK will just make like shepherd's pie and it tastes like shit, right? Like,
I guess all my racists that I know are from West Virginia, and maybe it's just West Virginia. They don't got much to do in West Virginia, so they just cook all the time.
yeah.
It might be that, and so I'm getting kind of like a bad balance here.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, whereas in the UK you have to be like a liberal to make good food, otherwise you're just gonna stick to like bullshit fried wank, right?
Let me ask you a
Beans on
question.
toast.
Would you go to a cookout knowing the food is amazing, but it's all made by racists? Like it's
Listen,
amazing, top tier food, but it's all made by
listen,
racists.
we're a broad Zionist church now, okay? So why not? Okay.
Shut up! Shut up!
But I don't know.
You know, I got it. I was out today in the this is the only this is the only time I interacted with anything somewhat fashy in the country. Is out today I was at like a pizza place and I was eating pizza and then the sirens start going off, right? I'm like, oh boy. And I think I posted a clip of it on Twitter. I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. And I'm just kind of watching it. And then a drunkard with no shirt, it's raining, pouring rain, no shoes during air raid sirens is fighting people in the street. He's drunk, no shirt, no shoes, just shorts, tattoos all over his body. He's drunk off his ass, shaven head, and he's just fighting people out in the fucking rain, just trying to throw hands. And I'm just watching this happen. And it's the most bizarre image in my life that I've probably, well, not the most bizarre image in my life, but it was extremely fucking bizarre image. And then there's this like Ukrainian next to me who says, he looks to me and my friend, and he knows I have like an American pin on my thing, and he's like, and he points to him and it says "hillbilly redneck." I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I understand that. And then like 5 minutes later, like a minute later, we're still looking, and he points to him again. He says "Untermensch," and I'm like, oh no,
Uh-oh.
oh. And that's the one interaction with fascism I've had in Ukraine, is one person saying that about another person.
Holy
When
shit.
that's the one interaction. The rest of it has been absolutely lovely. That's the one interaction.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a standard European experience though, right? Like it's hard to go up like a month in Europe without meeting a Nazi.
Yeah.
We have a lot of them. Anyway.
I didn't even know what to say. Like I was just kind of standing there, and I just between the air raid and the fucking shirtless guy with no shoes, no socks, fighting in the fucking pouring rain, and this guy calling him a redneck and then Untermensch. I just didn't, like I have felt like there was nothing for me to add to the conversation. Like, what do I
Yeah.
even say?
I think the best way to treat, like from my experience, the best way to treat people who have those kind of opinions is just to kind of like awkwardly like laugh, but let them know that you don't like what they said. Because it's like, it just makes them feel like, oh, wow, my racism is like really socially awkward, you know? Yeah.
It felt
It
like the
just
only
diffuses really
words he
quickly.
knew were just insults. So I don't
Okay.
think I could even communicate it. I guess I could have just given him a thumbs down. But then if I did that, then what if he thinks I'm thumbs downing the person as if I'm saying they're lesser? Then it's worse.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That's, communication barrier.
Yeah. I mean, I get that with English people, so I understand.
How do you know he meant it in a bad way? I'm pretty sure
True.
if yeah, well, he's like, we're all Untermensch
That could
here.
just be the
Yeah.
Ukrainian word for bottom, right?
He's like, he's a bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
Who are
like,
you to
I
say
met him at the
otherwise?
gay club. Yeah. That's another thing. People told me this country is homophobic as fuck. I have yet to engage with it or meet it. And I've seen very, very clearly queer people walking around. That's not to say that there isn't homophobia here, but I just haven't met it yet.
Hmm. Wow. Anyway, shit.
Do you think it
But
would be a bad trend if Top started calling bottoms Untermensch? I think that'd be a bad
I'm
trend.
almost at 100. Like it must already happen, right? Like
What do you
in
mean
some
it must
very,
already happen?
and there must be some very niche circles where that happens. Like I refuse to believe that no one else has thought of
Where?
that.
What do you mean by that?
Because unter and mensch, like under, like come on, what? I don't know.
Dylan met Ukrainian Sansol, unironically. Yeah,
Oh yeah, well there you go.
Ukrainian Sansol. Everybody else has been absolutely lovely, and it
Yeah.
seems like everybody. I think that's the one interaction with racism I've had in Ukraine, and it wasn't. And the thing that confused me is it was racism towards somebody else who was also Ukrainian, which is also what confused me because the person was not yelling in Russian; he was yelling in Ukrainian. So I was kind of confused.
Hmm. Interesting. Like, hmm. I had something to say, but I forgot what it
Because
was.
if it's another Ukrainian and it's not somebody of a different race, then like what did he even mean?
Yeah, that's
He
where I
was
guess
Russian,
different.
but that wouldn't make sense because he was speaking Ukrainian as far as I know. Who knows?
Did the
We'll never
languages
know.
not sound quite similar?
They do sound similar, but there's key differences.
Yeah. Okay.
It's you can tell if you listen to it for like a minute or two. You can figure it out by hearing key kind of like sounds.
Listen, Hunga Master
Untermensch
says,
refers to all kind
yeah,
of undesirables. Oh. So I guess he maybe could have been calling them the drunkard Untermensch, maybe.
maybe it's just the Ukrainian phrase for subhuman piece of shit, right?
It's just their version of NPC. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
calling him a libcuck. It's their version of libcuck. He was just trying to show me how based and red pilled he was.
Why
My
not?
God, Jesus Christ. Hey, you know what I'm interviewing tomorrow?
Huh.
I'm interviewing some folks who are using 3D printing to build homes for refugees.
What?
Yep.
Wow. You can 3D print a house.
Yep. Apparently.
Wow.
I'm gonna really emphasize like what is like speculative and what is concrete in their plan. Apparently, they just spoke to some Google people, which is pretty cool, I guess.
Jeez, I'm looking
Google
at a
people are
video of it
interested in
now,
funding it.
actually. Yeah. There's a video about 3D printed houses
I mean,
from not that long
and
ago.
it's like 10 times faster than a normal process. It costs a lot less. It's
Yeah.
just seems like the perfect system.
Someone in chat's asking,
Oh,
how about you print some bitches instead? Hmm.
print some bitches. I am the bitches.
People are going to 3D print sex dolls, right? Like, if that hasn't
Oh,
already happened.
100%. 100%. Dude, by the time I'm 50, there's gonna be a million different like robot wives people can have.
That is actually quite.
I'm gonna build an army of robot twinks.
I mean, that is very forward, though, right? Because concrete is like very environmentally unfriendly. So if you can get around that, shit.
Well, yeah, I guess for them it's just that they want to build these homes as fast as possible, and for as small amount of money as they can, right? Because a lot
Hmm.
of the homes that these people had, they're just gone permanently. So it's kind of like fuck,
Yeah.
And I've seen some Ukrainian homes. I'm sure that they can like a lot of them. Like it doesn't need to be if you're talking about like homes out in the country and shit. Like it does not need to be like a mansion. So I think it shouldn't be impossible. But I'll figure out tomorrow during the interview. Which I think that's not even going to be part of the documentary. I think I'm going to upload it as a separate video on the channel.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch of places I want to go, or I'm planning to go to film.
Well, where else are you going?
Um, I can confirm one other place at this point, but I don't want to confirm anywhere else because like all of it is kind of like secretive because I'm a secret agent.
Hmm.
But I'm going to Kiev in the Kiev Oblast, most certainly. And so there's
Whoa.
some certain well-known areas in the Kiev Oblast I want to film and show.
Yeah. Wow. That's really exciting. Kiev is like a really pretty town from what I've seen in pictures.
It's a very beautiful city from what I've seen, but
Mm.
I'm gonna go see it in person. Lviv is beautiful. I love Lviv.
Hmm.
The food's good. Um, I love it. I love it. I really do.
You
The whole
prefer
country is
European
fucking
cities
beautiful.
to American ones?
I don't. You can't ask me. That's not
It's a
fair.
pretty big difference, right?
I mean, like, shut the fuck up, you fucking piece of shit, cocksucker.
Am I wrong? Am I
Fuck
wrong?
you. You goddamn son of a bitch. DC is great. I
Okay.
love how I can't drive anywhere and there's nowhere to park. But then it's all built around cars.
Hmm. Oh yeah, the size of the roads and shit. Yeah. Oh god.
There's like being a car driver here must be unbelievably frustrating.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I'm 30 and I've never needed to drive. Like I just don't need it. If I want to go to a different town, I'll get a train. Takes like 3 hours at the most, and most of the places are walking distance. Like I'll barely ever need a bus. Just don't need it.
Yep, I don't want to get a car either. I want to just be a wanderer forever. I want to
Hmm.
wander.
Yeah, it's good for the leg, like an automatic leg day
You
every
know where
day.
I want to go, and I got to figure out if I can do it.
Where?
I'm tapping people on the shoulder about Chernobyl.
Oh yeah,
I want to record a story about the Russian soldiers digging in the Red Forest.
Russian soldiers digging in the Red Forest.
In the Red Forest, they dug trenches in the Red Forest, and then
Oh,
they all got fucking radiation poisoning.
really?
I'm just imagining how they didn't figure it out. They're like walking into the Red Forest, like looking around, like man, there's like no leaves here. There seems to be like no Ukrainian like trenches or defenses here. The ground's red. I mean, man, did we really just blow up all the Ukrainians? The ground's red? No, that's crazy. Let's dig a trench. Hey, making lunch? Yeah, I'm just cooking some eggs on the top of the tank for some reason. I don't know why it's so
Holy
hot on the
shit.
tank cover. Hey, I'm getting a tan and it's not even sunny out. I don't know what's going on. And 900 soldiers radiation poisoning.
Wow. Isn't there like a lot of like isn't there kind of like emerging wildlife around Chernobyl now though?
I would assume so. I don't want to go into the Red Forest. I just
Oh,
want to be
actually,
around. I just look. I just want to be in the area and then be able to talk about it because I want to be able to talk about it in the area because it's such an interesting story.
yeah,
The idea that
also
they dug in the Red Forest.
I just realized don't Google Chernobyl wildlife mutations. Don't look at that.
Really?
That's fucking grim. Yeah.
Now, Chernobyl wildlife. Why you told me not to,
I
but
googled Chernobyl wildlife, but then yeah, the mutations don't look very uh they don't look very kind. Although there are still quite a lot of animals there. Also, like, I'm sure there was a David Attenborough thing about like how nature kind of managed to revive around Chernobyl.
Wow. These are actually wild.
Apparently, someone's saying it's because there's no bacteria to eat the dead leaves, and they just stay there, and they're unable to decompose. That's interesting.
Wow, these animals are wild.
Yeah, wild animals.
Crazy. Can I grow a second dong?
um, before dying,
Can I
I
do
don't
a
know.
special dong operation?
God, are you scared of monkeypox though? Like shit.
Dude, monkeypox. Look, you know what? There's too many diseases, okay? There's too many. If I catch one,
We're
I catch
full.
one.
We're full on diseases.
We're pretty yeah, we're full on them. We're related to monkeys, so we should be able to deal with them, okay?
Okay,
Monkeys are fun. Monkeys are cool. I like Curious George. I'll be fine.
makes sense.
Anyway, man, I got to start up stream not too long, or decide not to start up stream and not too long because I just want to take a break.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for hosting me and talking to me and bothering me and your usual ramblings. I love them.
Good. I might have grabbed a wee VOD out of you, so that'll be cool.
Awesome. You have a good one, okay?
All right, take care, sir. Bye bye.
Take care. See you later.
What a pleasant young Zoomer.